shopping angels. All of these outer changes I was making were easy compared to stopping the negative thoughts that were plaguing my mind, especially over money. After I filed bankruptcy, I obsessed over my bills. Fortunately, I watched the documentary The Secret, based on the book The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, and attended the Science of Getting Rich seminar with Bob Proctor. I was pretty shocked to see that what was occupied my mind most of the time was debt. It was the toughest habit I had to break. When I heard Marianne Williamson say, "The Holy Spirit knows how much your rent is," I was so relieved. That was the first time the thought entered my mind that God was concerned with material things like my bills. It came at the perfect time because that's when we moved to the South Shore of Long Island so my daughter Ayana could go to a diversified high school, and my rent increased by $800. When I stopped worrying and trusted that God's got my back, abundance came and all the bills were paid. It took me a long time, however, to stop worrying. After the idea that God was concerned with my rent was planted, a new seed bloomed. Why not take God shopping with me? I know this is where I lost some people, but I can tell you from experience that there is a fashion angel for sure that knows your style. When you go from bodybuilder to yogini, your body changes drastically. Since I'm a bargain shopper, I went to my favorite TJ Maxx, walked in, and pretty much right in front of me was a rack of shirts, all different, cute, unique, my size, and on sale. Wow, I thought. Good job, God. I ended up putting about 30 shirts in my shopping cart to try on, and most of them fit. Dilemma. Usually nothing fits. Today they all fit. I really shouldn't be buying all of these shirts, I'm rationalizing. I went up to the cashier anyway with my cart full. Noticing, she asked me if I wanted to apply for the TJ Maxx credit card. I blurted out, I wish I could get one, but it would take a miracle. Since I had filed bankruptcy a few years prior, it was still on my credit report. The woman said, "Well, I believe in miracles." She was speaking my language. "So do I," replied. I loved meeting people who believed. The angel of credit cards approved me, and that was a miracle. The first credit card since my bankruptcy, and since then, I've built my credit back, and now it's the highest it's ever been. This experience taught me, besides God being the best shopping partner, not to worry about finances. God is my true banker. When I went back to work as a financial consultant at the bank, every month we had a sales goal to meet. We got paid drawer style, meaning each month we received a paycheck, but had to make sure our sales covered the paycheck. If we didn't, we owed money. It was a stressful way to earn a living, especially as a single mother. By the end of the month, I would start panicking. I would figure out how much more I needed in sales to make my quota, then go to work. Each morning, I would do my centering meditation and end with the affirmation, "Use me, God, connect me to someone who needs my services," or something like that. Then within the last couple of days of the month, someone would come in and open an account with just the right amount of investment that I needed to meet my quota. It happened without fail. I never had a month that I didn't meet my goal. "In God we trust" is printed on our currency after all. When and how did we remove ourselves so far away from that idea? You are a hard habit to break. Still, with all of this divine experience and validation, my negative ingrained thought patterns still stuck around. Having the awareness is the first step. Changing the pattern is where the rubber meets the road. I thought ex-boyfriends were hard habits to break. They pale in comparison to the obsessive negative thoughts about money I was parading around with. 20 years to make it, 10 years to break it. You can't walk around saying you are rich and acting like you are poor. My higher self. I busted myself recently. Haven't been doing the work, all the prosperity programs you could think of. I still wasn't receiving material abundance. Until one day I realized there was an inconsistency. I was saying one thing and doing another. The universe records everything. Every thought, feeling, word spoken, and deed goes out as vibration with our electronic signature imposed on it and comes back to us reflecting the same energy. It's known as like attracts like in the field of science. You reap what you sow in Christianity. In Eastern religions, the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect. In metaphysics, the principle is described as the law of one, or the out-breath and the in-breath of God. This unifying thread that runs through all of the great teachings, also called the law of the circle, simply means that what we send out through our thoughts, feelings, words, and action must return to us. Therefore, at any given moment, our lives are reflecting the sum total of whatever it is that we created with our past thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. The simple truth, when one wakes up to it, can change your whole life. There's never really doing something behind someone's back, including talking badly about them. When you do things in secret, it's never really in secret. You can't think you are fooling someone or getting over on them. There is no hiding in the universe. When we become awake and aware, congruous with our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, we become a student of the universe and also more responsible and accountable. We cannot say one thing to the universe and think or do something else. This is where integrity and impeccability play a role in our own lives as well as our relationships. Change your beliefs, change your thoughts, change your life. When you are immersed in self-help books on the spiritual path, it's easy to forget about the basics. Changing your thoughts changes your life. I think part of the reason is because we hear it so often now that the truth becomes cliche. We stop listening when we hear things too many times, just like we did with our parents. Good advice falling on deaf ears. In addition, there is so much information available at the touch of a button. It's easy to get swept away in all of it. Sometimes we forget the basics. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Be that as it may, if we check in with ourselves when we start to feel discomfort or irritability, it's usually because of our thoughts. When we're not paying attention, we quickly revert back to our habitual thought patterns in our deeply worn brain grooves. They're subtle and insidious, sneaking up on you when you're not paying attention. When we let go of those thoughts, breathe, and focus back to the present moment, everything shifts. From the Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox, scientist, philosopher, and spiritual teacher. We make or mar our lives by the way in which we think. The great law of the universe is that what you think in your mind, you will produce in your experience. As within, so without. You cannot think one thing and produce another. If you want to control your circumstances for harmony and happiness, you must first control your thoughts for harmony and happiness, and then the outer things will follow. If you want health, you must first think health, and remember, thinking health does not mean merely thinking a healthy body, important as that is, but it also includes thinking peace and contentment and goodwill for all. For destructive emotion is the primary cause of disease. If you want material prosperity, you must first think prosperity thoughts, and then make it a habit of doing so, for the thing that keeps most people poor is the sheer habit of poverty thinking. However, habits of thinking are the most subtle in character and the most difficult to break. It is easy, comparatively speaking, to break a physical habit if one really means business, because action on the physical plane is so much slower and more palpable than on the mental plane. Our thoughts flow across the stage of consciousness in an unbroken stream, and so rapidly that only unceasing vigilance can deal with them. For this reason, many people become discouraged with themselves and indulge in a great deal of self-condemnation because they do not very speedily change the whole current of thought over the whole area of their lives. This, of course, is a capital mistake, and incidentally, self-condemnation, being an essentially negative and unrighteous thought, tends to produce still more trouble in the old vicious cycle. If you are not progressing as fast as you wish to, the remedy is to be still more careful and to hold only harmonious thoughts. Do not dwell upon your mistakes, but claim the presence of God within you. Until we know truly in our hearts who we are, like Emmett Fox says, until we claim the presence of God within us, that we are all entitled to abundance in all things because we are all beloved children of God. To take it one step further, we are God. We will still attract whatever program is lurking around in our subconscious. Whatever you believe will become your reality. It all comes back to your thoughts, or as Zig Ziglar liked to say, you're stinking thinking. And that's one of the main reasons why yoga is so powerful and alchemical. The definition of yoga, according to Patanjali, is the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. Chitta is the mind stuff, or your consciousness. Vrittis are the waves and ripples, or the thoughts that are rising in it, and Nirodha means restraint. Patanjali's definition of yoga is not complete for me. When I learned about it years ago, something didn't quite resonate with me. So we quiet our mind, so what? It seemed to me there was something missing. What's the reason it's so important to quiet our mind? Well, we need to quiet our mind so our heart can do the thinking, so we can hear our soul. Since all that we need to live an abundant, happy, prosperous, joyful life is within, it would make sense we need to stop the incessant, unending noise chatter of the mind. The bottom of the lake we cannot see because its surface is covered with ripples. It is only possible when the ripples have subsided and the water is calm for us to catch a glimpse of the bottom. If the water is muddy, the bottom will not be seen. If the water is agitated all the time, the bottom will not be seen. If the water is clear and there are no waves, we shall see the bottom. That bottom of the lake is our own true self. The lake is the chitta and the waves are the vrittis. Swami Vivekananda. Why do we have such a hard time disciplining our minds and controlling our thoughts? Simply because we don't practice. If we want to play a musical instrument, we take lessons and practice for hours. Our mind is our instrument, the most powerful tool of creation we have. If we want to get good at meditation, controlling our thoughts, and creating the life we want, we have to practice. It took me over 10 years of practicing, sitting quietly and stilling my mind, and I still have trouble sometimes. People tell me all the time they can't meditate. I ask them how long they've been practicing. They usually answer, a few times. We spent a lifetime living in the turbulent mind. It's not realistic to think you can control the mind after a few attempts. Without practice, nothing can be achieved. Patanjali Yoga Sutra number 1. Pablo Casals, the world-renowned cellist, still practiced 3 hours a day when he was 93. When asked why he still practiced at that age, he said, "I'm beginning to see some improvement." I used to sit and try to meditate with the kitchen timer set for 1 minute. I couldn't even get to 5 seconds without having thoughts, and they weren't good ones. I gave up over and over again, but went back to it over and over again. I used to go to Buddhist meditation classes and fall asleep. It was embarrassing. Sleeping isn't meditation, by the way. I had such a hard time in the beginning, but I persisted. I learned how to train my physical body. The next part of my journey to real and lasting transformation was learning how to train my mind. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. Darwin.